Every wealth ladder ever made starts at zero. Zero to 100,000. Zero to a million. Watch enough of them and you notice something strange. Millions of people are not standing at the bottom of that chart. They are standing underneath it, in a region nobody bothered to draw. The territory under the line is not one undifferentiated place called broke. It has levels, and they are as distinct from each other as 100,000 is from a million. The rules change at each one. So does the way strangers speak to you, and so does the length of your own planning horizon. Start at the line itself. Zero. Nothing saved and nothing owed. Culturally, this is treated as failure, which is one of the strangest things about how money is discussed. Zero is not the bottom. Zero is the roof of the entire region below it, and a very large number of people are trying to reach it. At zero, nothing is compounding against you. No portion of next month is already claimed. Every dollar that arrives is fully yours to direct. Nobody celebrates reaching zero, and yet for someone climbing from below, zero is the single largest milestone on the entire journey. The first level down is minus $500. And it almost never feels like debt, it feels like a bad week. An overdrawn account, a small fee, a slightly short paycheck that makes the following week slightly short as well. It is a loop, and the loop is the whole mechanism. What makes it a level rather than an accident is the fee. The shortfall itself is small enough to recover from. The charge attached to the shortfall makes the next paycheck slightly smaller, which makes the next shortfall slightly more likely. The mechanism does not need you to spend badly. It only needs timing. Outwardly, nothing changes at all. Nobody knows. He goes to work, buys lunch, pays for a friend's coffee. The only visible difference is a small hesitation at a card reader that lasts under a second, and a habit of checking the balance before ordering rather than after. The whole of level 1 lives inside a 3-day gap. Rent leaves on the 1st. Pay arrives on the 4th. Those 72 hours decide whether the month is calm or expensive, and nothing about his income, effort, or discipline has any influence over the calendar that produces them. Level 2 is minus 2,000, and here the character of the thing changes. This is no longer a timing problem. It is a balance that survives from month to month, carried on a card, paid down slightly and rebuilt slightly, sitting at roughly the same figure for a surprisingly long time. The dangerous feature at this level is the minimum payment, because it converts a debt into a subscription. Paying it feels responsible and produces a receipt. What it mostly buys is permission to keep the balance, and the balance is happy to be kept for as long as anyone is willing to keep it. There is a detail at level 2 that unsettles people who reach it. He cannot account for what the 2,000 bought. Not because it was wasted, but because it accumulated across 4 years of ordinary weeks. The balance has outlived the memory of every single purchase inside it. Something important happens between level 1 and level 2. Money stops being the unit you think in. Time takes over. How many months until this clears? How many paychecks until that ends? People below the line do not think in dollars, they think in dates, and the dates get further away. Level 3 is minus 8,000, spread across 3 or 4 places rather than one. This is the level where administration itself becomes a burden. Different due dates, different portals, different minimums. A meaningful part of the difficulty is now simply keeping track of what is owed to whom. There is a cost at this level that never appears on a statement. Attention. A portion of every day is spent doing arithmetic in the background, and that portion is not available for anything else. People at level 3 are often described as disorganized. They are usually just fully occupied. The administration is genuinely absurd at this level. 4 portals, 4 passwords, 2 of which require a code sent to a phone he cannot always pay for. One account can only be reached by telephone during hours he is at work. The friction is not accidental, and it is not neutral. The treatment begins to change here, quietly. A card declines once at a restaurant, and the story is a bank error, told convincingly. Invitations get answered slightly later. A colleague plans a trip, and he says he will check, meaning he will decide whether the answer can be yes. Level 4 is minus 18,000, and it usually has an object attached, most often a car. The specific feature of this level is that the thing owed exceeds the thing owned. The vehicle is worth less than the loan against it, and that gap follows you even if you sell. This produces a particular kind of stuck. Selling does not free him, because the shortfall remains after the sale. Keeping it does not free him either. The asset that was supposed to provide options has become the reason there are none, which is a possibility nobody mentions at the point of purchase. Level 4 has a hidden clause most people meet only after signing. The lender requires comprehensive coverage on the vehicle for as long as the loan exists. So the monthly cost of the car is not the payment. It is the payment plus a premium he is contractually unable to reduce. At this level, a $400 repair is not a $400 problem. There is no $400. So the repair goes on a card, which moves part of level 4 into level 3, and the total edges downward again through an event that was never anybody's fault. Level 5 is minus 35,000, and this is where the word consolidation appears. One payment instead of 5. A lower monthly figure. Genuine relief on the first month. The structure is often sound. The risk is entirely behavioral, and it arrives about 4 months later. He did not go looking for consolidation. It arrived by phone on a Wednesday from someone who already knew roughly what he owed and used the word relief 4 times in 90 seconds. Being findable at exactly the wrong moment is one of the quieter features of this entire region. Here is what happens 4 months later. The cards that were consolidated are now empty, and empty cards are available. The monthly payment is lower, which creates room in the budget. Room and availability meeting in the same month is the exact condition under which the original balances rebuilt themselves. It would be easy to call that weakness. It is closer to physics. Every system with a released constraint and an available capacity tends toward refilling. Knowing this in advance is the difference between consolidation working and consolidation becoming the middle chapter of a longer story. Level 6 is minus 60,000, and it is usually not consumption at all. Education, medical events, a business that closed, a divorce. This is the level where the debt has a story attached. And the story is often one the person would make the same way again if the same year returned, which creates a strange emotional mismatch. Society attaches shame to the number, while the person attaches meaning to the reason. He is carrying $60,000 because his mother was ill for 14 months. The number implies recklessness. The year implies something closer to the opposite. 14 months of driving 90 minutes each way. Unpaid leave in March and again in August. A rented hospital bed for the front room and a ramp built by a neighbor who refused payment. The $60,000 is not a spending record. It is an itemized list of a year he does not regret. Treatment at this level depends entirely on what kind of debt it is, which is itself revealing. Education debt is discussed openly at dinner tables. Medical debt is discussed quietly. Business failure is discussed as a lesson. The same dollar amount receives 3 completely different social receptions. Level 7 is minus 100,000, and something changes here that surprises people. The arithmetic stops being the main problem. At this depth, the monthly interest alone can exceed what an ordinary budget adjustment produces. Cutting expenses no longer moves the needle in a way that is visible within a year. This is the specific point where standard advice stops working, and where most people receive it most loudly. Skip the coffee is arithmetic that matters at level 1. At level 7, it is noise. What matters at this depth is income, negotiation, structure, and time in roughly that order. So level 7 asks a different question, and it is an uncomfortable one. Not how do I spend less, but what would have to change about what I earn or what I owe? A second income, a renegotiated rate, a formal arrangement, a relocation. Structural problems only respond to structural answers. There is a symmetry between the region above zero and the region below it, and it is not a comforting one. Above the line, compounding works while you sleep and requires nothing from you. Below the line, the same mechanism runs in the same direction, which from your position means backwards. That is the part worth sitting with. The mechanism is neutral. It is not punishing anybody. It applies a rate to a balance and repeats, and it does this with total indifference to which side of zero the balance happens to be on. Most people meet it from underneath first, which is why climbing out is not simply saving in reverse. Going up from zero rewards patience. Coming up from below rewards sequencing. Which balance first? Which rate first? Which one is doing the most damage per month? It is a different discipline that happens to use the same vocabulary. There are two defensible orders, and people argue about them endlessly. Highest rate first is arithmetically superior. Smallest balance first is behaviorally superior. The correct answer is whichever one a person will actually still be doing in month 11, and almost nobody factors that into the comparison. Month 11 is where these plans actually die, and it dies quietly, not through a crisis, through fatigue. 11 months of restraint, with a total that is still visibly large, produces a specific kind of exhaustion, and exhaustion is a far more common cause of failure here than any single bad decision. The one measurement that seems to hold people through month 11 is not the total, it is the monthly interest figure. Watching that specific number fall, month after month, provides visible progress even while the headline total still looks enormous. And visible progress is what fatigue actually needs. Here is the observation almost nobody offers. People below the line are frequently better at money management than people above it. They forecast weekly, track precisely, and know their exact position at all times. They are not bad at this. They are running a much harder version of the same task. That inverts the usual assumption. Above the line, money buys the luxury of not paying attention. A surplus absorbs mistakes silently. Below the line, there is no absorption layer, so every figure must be exact. Carelessness is a purchase, and it is one of the first things a surplus quietly buys. Coming up is slower than going down, and the levels do not feel symmetrical from below. Reaching minus 500 from minus 8,000 takes years and feels like almost nothing, because the destination is still a negative number. Nobody throws a party for arriving at a smaller debt. And then, one Tuesday, a payment clears, and the number is 0. Not positive, 0. Nothing owed and nothing owned. He sits in a parked car outside a supermarket for 11 minutes because there is genuinely nobody to tell who would understand the size of it. There is no card for this. No colleague says, "Well done on owing nothing." The entire cultural apparatus of financial celebration begins somewhere above the line, which means the hardest single stretch most people ever complete is also the least acknowledged one. The first balance to disappear entirely is the smallest one, and closing it produces a feeling out of all proportion to its size. $410. One fewer portal, one fewer password, one fewer date to remember. The arithmetic barely moved. The administration got noticeably lighter. He keeps 3 habits from below the line, and they turn out to be worth more than the debt cost him. He still knows his exact balance without looking. He still forecasts weekly. And he still treats a $400 repair as an event that requires a plan rather than a card. The first $1,000 above 0 behaves completely differently from the last 1,000 below it. Same amount, opposite direction. And the difference in how it feels is enormous. Below the line, every dollar was already claimed. Above it, for the first time in 9 years, a dollar arrives unassigned. For 9 years, he had a short explanation ready in case anyone asked. Nobody ever asked. That is worth saying plainly, because the fear of being found out consumed more of him than any actual conversation ever did. He rehearsed a defense for a trial that never got scheduled. None of this required a different person. It required a map that included the territory he was actually standing in. Every level below 0 has a mechanism, and every mechanism has a specific response. The reason it felt impossible for years was partly that the chart on the wall began above his head. When a younger colleague asks him about money, he draws the chart differently. He starts the line in the middle of the page and leaves the whole lower half visible, empty and clearly marked. Most of the useful conversation happens down there, and almost nobody puts it on the paper. So find your own position honestly. Level 1 is a loop. Level 3 is an administration problem. Level 5 is a behavioral risk wearing a structural fix. Level 7 is an income question pretending to be a spending question. The advice that works depends entirely on which floor you are on.